The rig is still burning out of control.
It's kind of like stopping up a toilet. Plug up the blowout preventer and hopefully stop it from flowing and then pump some in after that.
We're waging against an oil spill that is assaulting our shores.
Good afternoon. We begin with breaking news. An explosion had occurred on an oil drilling platform in the Gulf of Mexico. On April 20th, 2010, an explosion occurred on the Deepwater Horizon oil platform. The worst oil spill in US history. You could see the floating oil slick from space every day. And what followed was millions of gallons of oil spilling uncontrollably into the ocean. It was almost unthinkable, wasn't it? This was a battle we were waging against an oil spill that was assaulting our shores and our citizens. This video told the story of the race to stop that spill, how engineers tried to plug a hole over 5,000 feet deep underwater, and I wanted to know just how much oil had actually been lost in the disaster, and tried different methods to better visualize the scale of that loss beyond just numbers alone. This was Deepwater Horizon visualized. To visualize how much oil had been spilled, we first needed a measuring container. Ordinary containers wouldn't do, so instead, we used the Empire State Building in New York City. Theoretically, it could hold up to 277 million gallons of oil. But to begin, our container was empty as we looked back to the evening of the disaster. On the evening of April 20th, 2010, everything still seemed normal on Deepwater Horizon, with workers finishing up the borehole. Many didn't know that the Deepwater Horizon rig wasn't actually designed for extraction. It was a drilling rig used to create initial boreholes and install wellheads before moving on to the next site. The well was finished, the reservoir had been reached, and all that remained was to seal the well so the rig could leave and a smaller platform could take over. For this transition, it was crucial that the well be fully closed off, so the crew performed a test to ensure it was ready to be temporarily abandoned. But suddenly the crew noticed a massive spike in pressure readings. This was bad. It usually meant oil and gas had entered the well. The crew re-ran the test. Same result. This was especially bad news for BP, since the rig cost over $1 million a day to operate, and Deepwater Horizon was already more than 6 weeks behind schedule. Despite the alarming readings, the crew decided to continue. Then, just before 10 p.m., those still awake were shocked as a geyser of mud and seawater erupted from the well and showered the rig. Before anyone could grasp what was happening, the worst-case scenario unfolded. Oil and gas escaped from the wellhead, rushed up the pipe, and exploded. We were looking at new pictures from the scene. A desperate search began for 11 missing workers. Of the 126 on board, 115 were rescued, but 11 were never found. Emergency responders attempted to put out the fire, but its remote location and constant fuel from the leaking well made this nearly impossible. After 2 days of burning, Deepwater Horizon finally tilted, slipped beneath the surface, and sank. But this was only the beginning. Deep below, the well Deepwater Horizon had drilled was now leaking, filling our Empire State Building container with oil. BP initially reported no leak, but days later admitted oil was escaping. Engineers sent a remotely operated vehicle to inspect the blowout preventer, BOP. The BOP systems were supposed to stop exactly this kind of disaster, but both the pipe rams and annular preventers had been activated too late. The blind shear ram should have automatically sealed the well when the rig lost power. but it failed due to a buckled pipe, puncturing it instead of cutting it. With the extent of the disaster finally clear, BP moved to the only guaranteed fix, drilling a relief well. But this would take months, so they turned to alternative solutions. They attempted a massive containment dome, the cofferdam. As it descended, methane hydrates formed, blocking the opening and making the dome dangerously buoyant. It shot upward, nearly hitting a vessel before crews abandoned it, letting it sink uselessly to the seafloor. Plan C. Insert a smaller pipe into the broken one to siphon oil. This worked partially, but oil still escaped around the pipe. Then came the infamous junk shot, pumping mud, golf balls, and debris into the BOP. Each attempt failed, the pressure simply forcing everything back out. Experts warned continuing could cause an underwater blowout, so the plan was abandoned. Cleanup costs rose to $6 million per day. Next, engineers returned to the containment cap idea, this time using a smaller, better-fitting cap. But first, they had to cut the damaged pipe, which increased the oil flow by nearly 20%. It took days, but the cap was installed. Warm water was pumped down to prevent freezing. Finally, it worked. The flow was captured and sent to processing ships. Over the next month, new caps were installed, each one reducing the leak. 86 days after the explosion, the oil finally stopped leaking. The relief well eventually intersected the original borehole, and heavy mud and cement were pumped to permanently seal the well. 110 days after the disaster began, the well was declared sealed. In total, 134 million gallons were lost, filling our container halfway. But independent scientists estimated the true figure could be over 210 million gallons, filling it 75%. BP disputed the higher estimates, but no matter which figure you use, Deepwater Horizon became the largest accidental oil spill in history, with devastating ecological damage and the tragic loss of 11 lives. Plugging a hole 5,000 feet underwater had been one of the most difficult engineering challenges ever attempted, but one only great engineers could solve. And for my next video, I focused on a completely different engineering marvel, the Formula One pit stop. I animated an entire pit stop to understand how crews managed to change all 4 tires in just 2.5 seconds. The video wasn't on YouTube yet, but on Nebula, you could watch it early. There, I posted exclusive documentaries, including my deep dive into the construction of the Twin Towers and investigations like MH17 and the Bin Laden raid. Nebula was a creator-built platform allowing higher-budget projects, including documentaries, game shows, and films. So, head to nebula.tv NEO. Using that exact link gave a 40% discount on the annual plan, just about $3 a month. Thanks for your support, and thank you for watching.